So, the Tour de France, it's looking highly unlikely that it's going to be taking place in 2020. And even if it does, there's a good chance there's not going to be a single fan by the roadside. In these uncertain times and without the anticipation of another cracking Tour de France, I thought we'd take a look back at one of my favourite moments from the 2018 Tour de France. Let's cast our minds back to the summer of 2018. The UK was basking in one of the hottest summers on record. The England football team were doing something the England football team has never done in my lifetime.
England are World Cup quarter-finalists again, and they've done it on penalties.
And who could forget that summer's Love Island?
Ellie, you need to pipe down because Ellie, shut the
But all these moments just pale into insignificance when you compare it to what happened on the 19th of July. Something that had never happened before. I mean, sure, yeah, us Brits, we've had plenty to cheer about in the last few years when it comes to cycling. Wiggins with his 2012 Tour de France and Olympic double. Froome's 4 Tour de France victories as well as his Giro. As well as Cav's World Championship win and his 30 Tour de France stage wins. But one thing that's always eluded Brits is a summit finish victory on Alpe d'huez. The Alpe isn't the highest pass in France and neither is it the toughest, but it's become the one climb every GC contender has to tame if they want to ride into Paris as the winner, and it's the one climb every mountain goat wants to win on. The first man to ever ascend Alpe d'huez and win on Alpe d'huez is the legendary Italian Fausto Coppi, and if you look at the list of riders who have won on Alpe d'huez, it's a who's who of some of the best GC contenders as well as climbers. Bernard Hinault, the first and only Colombian to win there, Luis Herrera, the legendary Marco Pantani, Andy Hampsten, Carlos Sastre, and we can add to that list finally, Geraint Thomas. G's victory on the famous Alpe looked like it could have been the pinnacle of his career, definitely the pinnacle of his 2018 Tour de France, because he was still playing second fiddle to Chris Froome, right? But how did we even get into this position with Geraint Thomas winning on Alpe d'huez in the yellow jersey and ultimately taking that yellow jersey all the way into Paris? Well, to find that out, we've got to go all the way back to the first stage. Albeit a nervous stage, as every single first stage is when it comes to a Grand Tour, it was pretty routine for G, finishing 14th and in the front pack behind the stage winner, Fernando Gaviria. Sky's team leader, Chris Froome, didn't have the same luck. He came down in a crash with about 5k to go. He managed to get himself back up and got home in a group including Adam Yates, losing 51 seconds. And in the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter because the chances are he was going to make all that time back up in the mountains. A crash on stage 2 within the last 3 kilometers gave everyone the same time who was in that group, which meant no real change in GC, especially for the GC contenders, as Peter Sagan took the stage victory on the uphill sprint. Stage number 3 would prove decisive for G, as Team Sky finished second in the team time trial behind BMC, which saw Greg Van Avermaet gain the yellow jersey, which, had it not been for the 4 seconds that Team Sky lost to BMC, would have put Geraint Thomas in that yellow jersey. However, I think if he'd been in yellow from stage 3, he wouldn't have held it all the way to the Alps, let alone to Paris. With Greg Van Avermaet in yellow, it allowed him to almost ghost his way through the next few days, with no one looking at him beyond the super domestique to Froome, but that would all change come stage 11. Stage 11 saw the GC contenders going head to head against each other over the 4 climbs and the first summit finish of the Tour in 2018, up to La Rosière. The first attack coming out of that GC group was Alejandro Valverde, as he slipped off the front, managing to catch his Movistar teammate who was in the next break, Marc Soler, possibly teeing something up for Landa or Quintana on that final climb. Next up, and Dumoulin made his move off the front alongside one of his teammates. They eventually catch Valverde, but on the final climb it was business as usual for Team Sky, as they set a blistering pace, pulling back the riders out front and shelling out Yates and Fuglsang. Now with just under 5k to go and the peloton whittled down, G made his move. He set off up the road alone, leaving Froome to follow the wheels of the other GC contenders as they had to work to pull Geraint back. Geraint managed to bridge up to Tom Dumoulin, and with Froome jumping on the back of an attack from Dan Martin, it looked set for the perfect springboard for Froome to gain back the time he'd lost and step into that yellow jersey. Right? Wrong. With 300 metres to go, Thomas had overhauled Nieve to take the stage win, and with it the overall GC lead by 1 minute and 25 seconds in front of who else? Chris Froome. Stage 12, Bourg Saint-Maurice to Alpe d'Huez, via the Col de la Madeleine and the Col de la Croix de Fer. This is the stage we thought normal service would be resumed. Geraint had pushed himself to the limit the day before. Surely his race was as far up Alpe d'Huez as he could go in support of Chris Froome. Now, as the riders rolled out of Bourg Saint-Maurice, a break didn't establish itself until the first climb of the day, where 26 riders went up the road in search of that elusive victory up Alpe d'Huez. In there was Steven Kruijswijk, the lieutenant to Primož Roglič, but today his sights were set solely on that stage victory. He managed to roll himself off the front group on the second climb of the day on the Col de la Croix de Fer. He pushed his advantage up to 6 minutes as he crested the climb, but as he reached the foot of Alpe d'Huez, his advantage was down to 4 minutes. As the peloton and Team Sky reached the foot of the climb, it was clear that there was still team orders in place for G to ride for Froome, as he and Egan Bernal were setting the pace on the front for Chris Froome. With attacks from Nibali and then Quintana, Egan Bernal just kept his pace, and with him, right on his wheel, was G. The same, however, couldn't be said for Chris Froome, who was clearly working hard to stay in the wheels of G and Bernal. While this was all going on, Landa attacked and failed, Bardet attacked and failed, and with 3.9 kilometers, this was Chris Froome's moment. He goes all out on the attack as Nibali is taken down by a fan, and it's roles reversed from the previous day, with G sitting on Tom Dumoulin's wheel as he closes down the gap to Froome. And eventually Landa manages to claw his way all the way back up to the front group to make it a 5-man sprint to the line. And as the riders turned the final bend, it was Geraint Thomas who just accelerated away from the rest of them to take that historic win on top of Alpe d'Huez.
This race is so hard, and you never know how the body reacts, and like I said yesterday, I'm still riding for Froome. Froome's still the man. He's like I said, he knows how to ride for 3 weeks. He's a, you know, legend gets used way too much, but you know, he's probably the best ever.
So not only did Geraint Thomas win on the famous Alpe d'Huez, he also extended his lead in the GC to 1 minute and 39 in front of Chris Froome, who stood 11 seconds ahead of Tom Dumoulin. And that's the way it would stay all the way into Paris, as Geraint Thomas won potentially his only ever Tour de France. But what a Tour de France it was. So not only did this victory put Geraint Thomas in the history books as the first British rider to win on Alpe d'Huez, it also cemented his place in Team Sky's pecking order as the team leader. Had the roles been reversed and Chris Froome took the victory, who knows what have happened. Potentially he might have had a better argument to take yellow into Paris, but unfortunately he didn't have the speed, he didn't have the power, and Geraint looked phenomenal in the 2018 Tour de France. Hope you enjoyed that little look back at Geraint. Hope you enjoyed that little look back at the 2018 Tour de France. Now let me know down in the comments below, what is your favourite ever Tour de France moment? Leave them down below. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you've disliked it for whatever reason, feel free to hit that dislike button. But above all, leave those comments down below. Alright, so before the video ends, just a tiny little bit of self-promotion. April 3rd to 5th is going to be the first ever Haute Route, which is going to take place on Zwift. Three stages of just climbing, climbing, climbing. And we also go up Alpe d'Huez. So I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity for those people who enjoy watching people suffer on climbs to get involved in my streams. My membership scheme is starting soon, so you're going to be able to join that if you wish. However, please join the stream, please join the rides, and come along and ride with me as I take on some of the most epic climbs in Zwift. Links are all down in the description so you can follow me on Strava and also Zwift, and then you'll know when I go live with my live streams because you will have hit that notification bell. Isn't that right?